There is no greater pain than when a mother has to bury the child she once held in her arms. But some black mothers only get to see their child one last time on the news, or a cold corpse in a hospital morgue. Some people die from a 15-story fall without anyone knowing why. Some people collapse on stage while the audience still thinks they are performing. Some people were the soul of America's greatest band, but they died of complications that no one cared about. But that's just the surface. Below are 21 silent wounds, dark truths that the entertainment industry always tries to ignore. Stay until the end of the video to discover the truths that Hollywood wants to hide. And if your heart is broken, share and leave a tribute. 21. Melvin Franklin, the silent shadow warrior. He is the warm heart of the Temptations, the one who stands quietly behind the spotlight but always keeps the rhythm of the group. Melvin Franklin, with his rare bass voice, not only creates depth for the music but also provides spiritual support for his fellow artists during their peak years. But few people know that since the mid-1980s, his body has begun to silently betray him. Melvin has chronic immunodeficiency, has to continuously take high doses of cortisone, making him gradually become a shadow among the very people he once inspired. One night in 1995 at his home in Los Angeles, Melvin Franklin walked into the bathroom after a dizzy spell. He left the door ajar. His wife, Kim, said she heard the sound of running water but heard no other noise. When she knocked on the door, no one answered. Melvin was found unconscious, face down on the cold tile floor. Doctors confirmed that he had suffered a stroke, a serious complication of a disease that had worn down his immune system for years. What was haunting was that a few days earlier, Melvin had whispered a strange sentence to a close friend: "If one day I don't wake up, keep the Temptations playing, don't turn it off." Those close to him said he had long been exhausted, but still tried to maintain a strong image so as not to disappoint his fans. He hid his pain with laughter, using music as a final medicine against the loneliness of illness. Melvin Franklin left without leaving a formal last word, but those who knew him felt he lived his whole life as a silent soldier, always protecting the squad, even when his strength was exhausted. Sometimes, the greatest souls don't need to stand in the middle of the stage to be remembered forever. They lived by dedication, and their passing is a reminder behind the bright lights are always silent warriors fighting every day just so that others can hear the music. 20. David Ruffin, the angel who fell in the apartment no one remembers. He was the lead singer of the Temptations, the one who made the whole world stop breathing with My Girl. David Ruffin not only had a honeyed voice, but also had fiery eyes and the demeanor of a natural star. But after leaving the group in 1968, that light gradually faded. His solo career was in trouble. His relationships were falling apart. And then, addiction came like a ghost that could not be shaken off. On June 1, 1991, David was taken to a hospital in Philadelphia by a friend. He was no longer conscious. There were traces of dangerous drugs and many stimulants in his blood. Just hours later, the man who had once brought the audience to their feet and applauded had died in a quiet emergency room. But the story didn't end there. A strange detail: friends had no idea where David had been in the 2 days before his death. No one knew who he had met, what he had consumed, or what had happened. The police only knew that he had appeared in a cheap apartment near a poor neighborhood. No one was with him, no phone, and the last bill in his wallet was $10. A legend died alone and cold, as if forgotten in the very world he had captivated. The family suspected that someone had intentionally let him die. Some artists in the Philadelphia music underground whispered at the time David might have known something, a secret he shouldn't have known, and was forced to overdose. But no one investigated to the end. Everything was quietly put aside as if it had never happened. David Ruffin once sang, "Ain't too proud to beg," but by the end of his life, he had asked for nothing. He let fate decide, and then he disappeared like a forgotten note. Some people are born to shine, but their light is so bright, they can't stand themselves. David was a lost angel, and the question remains who made him never come back. 19. Donnie Hathaway, Soul from the 15th Floor. He was a musical genius who could turn deep pain into eternal love songs. Donnie Hathaway didn't just sing, he inspired. He empathized, he healed, but inside his head, there was a silent, fierce war. Donnie suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, a mental illness that caused him to hear voices that tormented him every day. On the evening of January 13, 1979, Donnie went to New York to record with Roberta Flack. "He was fine," said a close friend, smiling, singing, joking with me, but a few hours later, he was gone, around midnight. Donnie was found falling from the 15th floor of the Essex House Hotel. The police recorded it as a suicide, but his family disagreed. His window was wide open, but there was no suicide note. His shoes were neatly placed by the bed, and the strangest thing, his left hand still clutched a piece of paper with unfinished chords. Donnie believed that people wanted to kill him, said his wife, Aaliyah. He said they were watching his every move, listening to his thoughts. I didn't believe it then. I'm not sure now. Friends say Donnie often dreamed that he was floating, and no one could reach him. He was afraid of heights, afraid of silence, and most of all, of being forgotten. The death of Donnie Hathaway is a deep wound that will never heal in the black music community. Not just because he left too soon, but because no one knows what happened that night. But one thing is certain, that voice is still here, among us, like a spirit that never dies, like an unfinished song, waiting to be heard one last time. 18. Curtis Hairston, the star blind to his light. He was the golden voice of the 1980s, who made audiences dance non-stop with "I Want You All Tonight" and "Let's Make Love Tonight." Curtis Hairston is considered one of the rare talents of modern R&B, with a style that blends funk, soul, and disco very characteristically. But few people know that. When the stage lights were at their brightest, Curtis had been quietly battling diabetes since his teens. The disease caused his eyesight to gradually weaken, his feet to become paralyzed, and his internal organs to deteriorate terribly when he was in his early 20s. Near the end of his life, Curtis once told his manager, "I'm not afraid of dying. I'm just afraid of disappearing without anyone understanding what I want to sing." He cherished an album called Second Sunrise, a desire to be reborn through music after a series of painful days in the hospital, but that album was never recorded. One of the last demos found in his studio opens with a faint whisper, "This time, I want them to remember the real me." In January 1990, Curtis was hospitalized with severe complications in his pancreas and kidneys. Doctors warned him that his condition was serious. However, Curtis kept the severity of his condition from his family. He lied to his mother that he was only going for a routine checkup. His best friend, Ricky, recalled the night before he died. "Curtis held my hand, cried, and said, if I ever saw him again, it would probably be in music." Curtis died at the age of 29. There was no big funeral, no headlines in the music press. What broke his fans the most was that no one knew he was so ill. No one knew that in the last years of his life. He was almost completely blind, still trying to write his music by recording each song on a cassette player. The biggest secret, a letter he wrote to himself, found in his closet with the heartbreaking words, "If I die young, please tell the world I tried, I tried." Some lights never burn brightly, but smolder deep into the heart. Curtis did not enjoy lasting glory, but his voice remained a gentle flame in a turbulent musical era. 17. Roger Troutman, the dreamer awakened by a bullet of flesh and blood. Roger Troutman was a musical revolutionary. He created the unique talkbox sound in Computer Love and I Wanna Be Your Man. He brought black funk into the 21st century, but amid his success and inner complexity, Roger was also a man of many contradictions, living between love and competition, between admiration and jealousy. The heartbreaking thing is the person who shot Roger was not an enemy, but his brother, Larry Troutman. Early on the morning of April 25, 1999, Dayton, Ohio, police received an emergency call. A middle-aged man had been shot multiple times in the parking lot of a sound company. It was Roger. Less than an hour later, police found Larry's body in a nearby car. Larry had committed suicide. Everyone was shocked. The two brothers had been inseparable in the band Zapp. They founded a record label, sharing everything from poverty to wealth, but behind the scenes, the business was in debt, and financial conflicts were getting more and more tense. Roger wanted to separate from Larry to run his own company. Some employees recalled that Larry once exclaimed, "I gave him everything. Now he kicks me out like trash." The night before, Roger came home later than usual. He seemed tired and pensive. His wife said that Roger did not sleep but stayed up all night, just sitting at the keyboard without turning on the lights, in Roger's pocket on the day he died. The police found a crumpled handwritten note. "If this is the last, please don't blame him. We were one." The story of Roger Troutman shocked Hollywood. No one expected a musical genius to be killed by his brother. No one knows what the two brothers said in their last meeting, and no one is sure if Roger had a premonition, or if he still believed that blood would not betray. That pain still echoes in every note of Zapp's music. It's as if every hit is now a strangled cry from a love that turned into tragedy. 16. Marvin Sease, the love songwriter, dies in silent pain. Marvin Sease is a Southern soul singer who touched millions of hearts with the song Candy Liquor, a bold but also haunting love song. He is not a popular star, has no mainstream Billboard hits, but in the underground and Southern black community, Marvin is a symbol of raw love, of unvarnished emotions, but behind the spotlight. Marvin lives alone, and almost no one knows much about his private life. He suffered from liver cancer for many years but kept it a secret. No one heard him complain of pain. No one saw him as weak. What shocked audiences was after his final show in Atlanta in late January 2011, Marvin disappeared from the tour schedule without notice. His nephew, who was also his stage manager, said that Marvin sent a simple text message, "I need a few days off. Don't ask why." 3 weeks later, Marvin died in a hospital in Vicksburg, Mississippi. No one but his immediate family was by his side. A nurse said that on his last night. Marvin had difficulty breathing and repeated the same sentence. They haven't heard the last song. In his room, his relatives found an old leather notebook with the lyrics to an unreleased song. The last page read, "If I can't sing to them, I'll sing to God." Marvin Sease had no statue, no Grammy, no television tribute, but the audience who loved him didn't need that. They just needed the song. And the truth was that he lived and loved exactly the way he sang. Marvin's life is proof that you don't have to be in the spotlight to be a legend. As long as you're true to your heart, your music will outlive any news story in the world. 15. Van McCoy, the musical magician who fell into a half-made song. He was the man who made America dance to the timeless hit The Hustle. Van McCoy, a talented producer and songwriter of the 70s, was the man behind the success of dozens of famous artists. His music was like magic, gentle, soaring, making listeners feel like they were lost in an endless disco dream. But behind the image of a successful and elegant man, Van hid a secret pain. He had a congenital heart disease and had experienced many prolonged chest pains after each time he overworked himself in the studio. Relatives said that Van once said, "I don't know how long I have left, so every song is a goodbye." But no one expected those words to be true. A week before his death, Van spent almost all of his time in his New York studio, writing music for an unreleased project. He refused to meet friends, did not attend press conferences, and left only a note, "I want this to be the last thing I send to the world." On July 6, 1979, Van McCoy suddenly collapsed at his home. The police arrived after a call from his maid and found him unconscious on the sofa, still wearing his recording suit, with his unreleased record open on the table. The doctor concluded that the cause was a heart attack. But what shocked everyone was that in his jacket pocket, he had a leather notebook, inside which was written, "If I don't get this out, let it play in the summer. It's my last Sunday." The mystery lies in the fact that the final recording was never released in its entirety. Part of the tape was corrupted and disappeared from the record label's archives. Some say Van asked for it to be destroyed because he felt it was incomplete. Others believe it was written for a secret lover, a relationship that was never made public. This makes Van's death even more suspicious. Van McCoy left behind a legacy of tunes that made the world dance, but he died quietly, as if he didn't want anyone to witness his final moments. Sometimes, a genius knows when he's going to die and just wants to leave with the softest music. 14. Billy Preston, the lost man between angels and sinners. He was known as the fifth Beatle, the only black man to ever play live on an album by the legendary British band. Billy Preston was an irreplaceable keyboardist who contributed to classics like Get Back and My Sweet Lord. But behind the scenes, Billy was a broken man. He grew up sexually abused as a teenager, struggled with identity, addiction, and unnamed depression all his life. Towards the end of his life, he suffered from severe kidney failure and had to undergo dialysis several times a week. Despite this, Billy continued to perform at small churches and record gospel songs for the black community. Few people know that he once wrote in his diary, "I have lived in the light of others, but I am dying in my darkness." That was the only message he left before falling into a permanent coma. In June 2006, Billy Preston died in a hospital in Scottsdale, Arizona. He had been in a vegetative state for 7 months after suffering a sudden cardiac arrest. A nurse said that on the night of his death. An unidentified song played on an old cassette player by his bedside. The lyrics were a single refrain, "Please don't forget me." No one knew which recording it was. No one had found the master tape. A close friend of his, a gospel singer, revealed that Billy had wanted to record a final album about his past abuse, but he was afraid of hurting too many people. Billy wanted to clean his soul, but he didn't have the strength to scream. The friend said, Billy Preston's death was not just the passing of an artist, it was the silence of a soul that once burned brightly, but never healed. And his name, though it rang out in legendary recording studios, was forgotten in the place where he was most hurt. 13. Minnie Riperton. Her voice touched heaven, but no one could touch her. She was a rare soprano, known for her angelic ability to reach the octaves. Minnie Riperton moved America to tears with "Lovin' You," a love song she wrote for her young daughter. But behind that clear voice was a hidden tragedy. She was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 26, when her career was just taking off. Despite undergoing surgery and intensive treatment, Minnie always kept it a secret from the public. She did not want people to pity her because of her illness. Towards the end of her life, she participated in television shows with a bright smile, even though her health was deteriorating day by day before she passed away. Minnie wrote a letter to her daughter, "If I don't get to see you grow up, listen to my songs. Each note is a hug I haven't had time to give you." In July 1979, Minnie died at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles, when medical staff turned off life support. Her family found her clutching a small pendant with her child's birth date. What was even more touching was her request that there be no elaborate funeral. "I don't want anyone wearing black. Give me a musical party," she told her husband before she died. After her death, some of her artist friends revealed that Minnie had wanted to release a final album consisting only of recordings of lullabies to her child, but the record company refused because it thought they had no commercial potential. Those recordings were said to have been destroyed, but to this day, a few copies still exist in the hands of her family. Minnie Riperton's death is a testament to the fragility of great talent. Despite touching the hearts of millions, she left feeling that she had not said enough, and that voice soaring. Soaring is now the most beautiful memory of a mother who never got to see her child grow up. 12. Phyllis Hyman, the angel who broke behind the stage. She was the ballad queen of 80s R&B, possessing a voice so deep and melancholy that each lyric seemed to be a whisper from a broken heart. Phyllis Hyman was once nominated for a Grammy, compared to Aretha Franklin, but beneath the spotlight, she was a lonely, depressed woman, consumed by a sense of not belonging. Few people know that. Throughout her career, Phyllis always felt abandoned by her family, by her lover, and by the white-dominated music industry. On June 30th, 1995, just hours before her performance at the Apollo Theater, Phyllis went to her room at the Gramercy Park Hotel, wrote a 4-page suicide note, and downed a bottle of sleeping pills. "I tried," she wrote, "I tried, but my heart has no music." Her manager found her unconscious after failing to reach her. They assumed she was just running late as usual. No one knew it would be the last time the audience would see her on stage. A strange thing that haunted her relatives just last week. She bought a new performance dress, calling it a farewell dress without anyone understanding what it meant. Phyllis also called 3 old friends, saying nothing more than one sentence, "I miss you guys, if there is an afterlife. I hope we meet on another stage." The secret was later revealed that she had been forced to have an abortion while pregnant with a famous record executive. That shock haunted her for the rest of her life. Phyllis Hyman did not die because she was weak. She died because she had carried her loneliness for too long without anyone listening. Some voices are not meant to be celebrated but to be understood, and when that voice is silent forever, it is not just a loss of music, it is a cry for help that we have missed. You have walked with us through 10 painful chapters, stories not just of death, but of the cruel silence of a cold world. Thank you for not turning away. But the remaining 11 stories will challenge every definition of justice and memory. If those artists were white, would their deaths have been forgotten? 11. Florence Ballard, the goddess ripped from her throne in silence. She was a co-founder of the Supremes, who laid the foundation for one of the greatest girl groups in Motown history. Florence Ballard had a powerful voice, a gentle face, and a natural charm. But she was the one who was pushed out of the group when Diana Ross was pushed to the center position. From a global star, Florence fell into unemployment, debt, depression, and poverty to the point of not being able to afford medicine. Few people know that after being dropped from the Supremes in 1967, Florence tried to sue Motown for her rights. She had a contract that was considered a killer but suddenly withdrew it. The reason has never been revealed. There were rumors that she was threatened or bribed, but family members kept quiet. In February 1976, Florence Ballard was admitted to Sinai Hospital in Detroit with severe abdominal pain. Doctors discovered that she had a blocked coronary artery. Less than 24 hours later, she died at the age of 32 in her wallet. She had only a few coins and a faded picture of her 3 children. A hospital employee recalled that Florence whispered while dying, "I had everything, and then I had nothing," after her death. Many people in the music industry expressed their condolences, but there were also important figures who remained completely silent, leaving the public wondering. An artist who performed with her said Florence is the voice of dignity, but the world loves the spotlight, not the lightkeeper. Florence Ballard's death was not just the fall of a forgotten talent, it was a bitter testament to the cruelty of showbiz, not even the one who created the spotlight. 10. Jackie Wilson, the man buried alive in the spotlight. He was Mr. Excitement, a performance icon, the thunderous voice of R&B and soul in the 50s and 60s. Jackie Wilson was the inspiration for both Elvis Presley and Michael Jackson. He not only sang, he made the stage explode with every dance move, every scream. But few people know that behind the spotlight. Jackie lived in debt, was financially abused by his manager, and fell into a severe mental crisis for many years. On the evening of September 29, 1975, while performing Lonely Teardrops in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, Jackie suddenly collapsed. The audience applauded, thinking it was a performance, but Jackie did not get up. He suffered a severe stroke, lost consciousness, and remained in a vegetative state for the next 8 years. During that time, he was moved from nursing home to nursing home, had no adequate care, no insurance, and only a few loyal fans who regularly visited. A horrifying detail was revealed after his death. He had been placed on a feeding tube incorrectly for nearly 2 months, causing severe ulcers. The old nurse recounted that while taking care of him, she saw tears rolling down Jackie's cheeks while listening to an old Motown song. No one knew if he could still hear, still understand, or if it was just a final, painful reflex of a soul that could not leave. Jackie Wilson died in 1984. His funeral was not grand. He had no will, no estate, only music. And the question that has never been answered, why did a legend die in silence like an unknown person? Some souls sing until they are exhausted. Some bodies refuse to leave the stage until their hearts stop beating. Jackie Wilson was such a person, not because of illness, but because the world forgot him while he was still alive. 9. Don Cornelius, the guide who ended his journey. He was the man who forever changed the face of American television with the show Soul Train. Don Cornelius not only created a playground for black music, but also brought a new culture, where young people of color could dance, be proud, and see themselves on screen. But few people know that. Behind the neat suit and calm smile, Don lived in prolonged loneliness, tormented by depression and chronic headaches after brain surgery in 1982. In the early morning of February 1, 2012, Don was found dead in his home with a pistol in his safe. The police found a brief suicide note, "I can't take it anymore." His son said that his father once whispered, "It's tiring to be a soul guide for others when you can't see the way yourself." One haunting thing is that in his final week, Don called many of his former colleagues, leaving no farewells, only one reminder: keep the Soul Train spirit alive. Some believe he still hoped to be remembered as a cultural icon, not a man who collapsed in silence. Don Cornelius died the way he lived, full of anxiety, always keeping his image until the last minute. But behind the spotlight was a heart that was pounding because the world had no room for him to heal. 8. Gerald Levert, the prince who fell on the legal drug. He is the son of the legendary Eddie Levert, and he stepped out of that shadow with a rich, warm, and lyrical voice. Gerald Levert conquered millions of audiences with his sweet songs and passionate performances, but behind the light was a silent battle with stress, insomnia, weight gain, and the pressure of continuing family expectations. He took prescription drugs to relieve pain, to sleep, to survive. On November 10, 2006, Gerald was found unconscious at his home in Ohio. A medical report later confirmed that he died of a toxic reaction to a combination of prescription drugs, including painkillers, sedatives, and anti-anxiety drugs. He was only 40 years old. A close friend revealed Gerald always said he was fine, but his eyes were never at peace. A document found in his home was a rough draft of lyrics for an unreleased album, titled "Voice of the Broken." Underneath, he had written in his handwriting, "Sing to love." But sometimes singing is a way to not drown. That sentence has now become a painful last word. Gerald Levert did not die of rebellion, but because no one realized that he was drowning in the silent pain of an artist with a sensitive heart. He did not need praise, just someone who would truly listen. 7. Barry White, the giant who fell in silent solitude. He was an icon of love, with a distinctive deep voice that melted millions of hearts. Barry White was not only a singer but also a great producer who shaped the soul and sensual R&B genre. But behind the image of a gentleman was an oversized body and an overworked heart. For many years, he struggled with diabetes and high blood pressure, but still performed non-stop. In 2003, Barry White was hospitalized for severe kidney failure, needing an urgent kidney transplant. But he was too weak to survive. His wife said that in his last week, Barry could no longer speak, but kept signaling to play an old song. It was "Practice What You Preach." When the doctor asked why, he simply wrote on a piece of paper, "I want to remember who I used to be." Barry died in a hospital room, with no lights, no background music, just the slow sound of a dialysis machine. But what shocked his family was an old letter he wrote in 1999 that was found in the safe. "If one day I am no longer here, tell your fans that I have no regrets except for the time I spent with you." Barry White's death was not an explosive shock, but the slow disappearance of a man who was too busy loving others to love himself. A quiet death, but one that resonated forever in the hearts that once trembled for him. 6. Teddy Pendergrass, the icon who fell behind the wheel of fate. Teddy Pendergrass was once the most charming face of R&B ballads, with his deep voice and the image of a strong black man that made thousands of women swoon at ladies-only concerts. But in 1982, a car accident left him permanently paralyzed. Few people knew that the person sitting in the same car that night was a transgender woman, a detail that had been kept secret for fear of destroying his masculine image. Teddy returned to music with extraordinary determination, but for nearly 30 years, living in a wheelchair, he silently struggled with pain. In 2010, after an intestinal surgery, his body did not recover as expected. His wife said Teddy was tired, but he never complained. He just asked, "If I can't sing anymore, who am I?" Teddy Pendergrass did not die because of an accident, but because the world never really let him be himself. A strong symbol, but inside was a soft heart that was never heard. 5. Rick James, the king of freaks, dies in the battle of his own. Rick James was the epitome of wildness, the creator of explosive funk tracks like Super Freak. He was a rebel at heart, a man who loved to live fast, and was crazy in ways the world couldn't ignore. But behind the scenes, Rick had spent years in prison, abused drugs, and struggled with undiagnosed mental illness. In 2004, he was found dead on the couch in his home. An autopsy revealed 9 drugs in his system, though none were above the lethal level. Rick didn't want to die, his ex-girlfriend recalled. He just didn't know how to live without highs. The week before his death, he wrote in his diary, "I'm so used to the cheers. The silence is suffocating." Rick James's death was not unexpected, but it was the way he lived until the end that made people unable to stop feeling sorry for him. A lost soul who kept demanding attention until the last second. 4. Isaac Hayes. The giant collapsed on the treadmill that no one heard. He was an icon of 70s soul, an Oscar winner for the soundtrack of Shaft, and one of the first black artists to be recognized by Hollywood. But few people know that Isaac Hayes lived in isolation in his later years, depressed after leaving the Church of Scientology, to which he had been deeply attached. On August 10, 2008, Isaac was found unconscious near the treadmill in his home. He had just returned to training after a period of declining health. What caused a stir was that the security cameras were turned off that night, and his relatives had no idea that he had been lying alone for more than 40 minutes before being discovered. There was no suicide note, only an unfinished manuscript in the study, "Music Won't Save Me This Time." Isaac Hayes died in a world that had stopped listening to him. A strong man, who had led a generation, fell in silence, like the last bass line swallowed up in the space. 3. Aaliyah, Broken Angel in the Bahamas. She was a new generation R&B icon, known as the Princess of Black Pop, with a gentle voice and an irreplaceable image. Aaliyah had just finished filming a music video in the Bahamas when she decided to take a flight back earlier than expected. Few people knew that she was worried about the small plane being overloaded, but still agreed because of her tight schedule. The plane crashed shortly after takeoff. Aaliyah's body was found in the tail of the engine, burned but still wearing the necklace engraved with her mother's name. She said if anything happened to her, she just hoped her mother wouldn't have to cry for too long, her close friend revealed. Aaliyah died at the age of 22, leaving behind an unfinished career and a haunting warning sometimes. A rushed schedule can cost a generation of talent. 2. Luther Vandross, the honeyed voice that fell silent forever. He was a symbol of love and tenderness in R&B, with ballads that made listeners want to fall in love again. But Luther Vandross lived a solitary life, avoiding public opinion about his sexuality and silently battling diabetes. After a stroke in 2003, he lost the ability to speak and sing. An assistant said Luther once scribbled on a piece of paper, "I can still hear the music, but I don't know how to say it." In 2005, he died of internal complications in her room. They found an unfinished demo called "If I Were Still Me." A genius disappeared amid the pain that no one was allowed to know, leaving a silence greater than any stage he had ever been on. 1. Whitney Houston, the queen who shattered her castle. Whitney Houston was once a global music icon, and the voice of "I Will Always Love You" became immortal. But the halo came with tragedy drugs, a troubled marriage, and the pressure to always be perfect. Hours before the awards night, Whitney was found dead in a hotel bathtub. In the room, staff found the television playing gospel music and a half-written note, "I want to go back to being a church girl." Her mother revealed Whitney wanted forgiveness, but didn't know who to ask. Whitney's departure was a heartbreaking end to a soul that had never lived as herself, only loved when she sang, and forgotten when she stopped smiling. Each artist on this list is not just a star on stage, but also a person carrying a silent wound. They give us music, emotions, and sometimes even cries that the world does not hear. Let's remember that behind the halo, there is always understanding, sharing, and kindness. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and remember the souls who shook the world with music. If these stories touch your heart, please like, share, and leave a comment. Every interaction you have is a tribute to them, those who lived and loved in silence.